Hello and welcome to today's lesson. Before we start looking at some pretty complicated examples, I'm just going to review the rules of working with exponents. First rule I want to review is this one. If you have a power and you multiply it by another power and they have the same base, remember the rule is that you add those exponents together. That's a pretty important rule. Another important rule is this one. If you have a power and you raise it to another exponent, so you kind of have your inner and outer exponents, then the rule is that you multiply the two exponents together. So these are the very important two rules of working with exponents. So now let's clear off the screen and start our first example. Okay, in this example we're going to take 16 x cubed y to the negative 2, and that's being divided by 18 x to the negative 4 and y to the negative 6. And we're going to try and simplify this mess. So how do we do it? Well, first things first, if you just look at the 16 over 18, that's just taking two numbers in a fraction and reducing them to lowest terms. Well, 16 and 18 both divide by 2, so I could just reduce that to 8 over 9. So that has nothing to do with the rest of this mess. Now, how do I continue with the mess? Well, my suggestion is you leave the powers that have positive exponents where they are, and the ones that have negative exponents, you move those to either the bottom or the top so that they all have positive exponents. So I'm going to take y to the negative 2 and write that on the bottom as y to the positive 2. Then I'm going to move both of these that are on the bottom to the top and change them from negative exponents to positive exponents. Okay. Then I look at, well, what do I have here? I have 8 on the top, 9 on the bottom, and then I have x cubed times x to the 4. Well, that's going to be x to the 7. Okay, I'm just going to add the two exponents together. Then I'm going to look at the y to the 6, which is being divided by y squared. Well, these two y's will wipe out two of these y's, and that will leave me with 4 y's left over on the top. And that's my simplified answer. Sometimes you'll see it written like this. So sometimes they put the numbers out in front, and then they write the powers after that. Means exactly the same thing as what I've written as one fraction here. So it's just a little bit different way of looking at it. All right, we're on to my second and last example. So let's have a little look. So this one's pretty miserable. We have 10 to the negative 1 and excuse me, x to the negative 3, and that is being squared, and then y to the 6. Now, all of that's on the top. Then we have 5 on the bottom, and in brackets x and y cubed raised to the negative 3. So we're going to try and simplify this mess as much as possible. All right, well, let's start off with some of these numbers, like 10 to the negative 1. Let's move that downstairs, and it becomes 10 to the positive 1. Then the 5, that one's okay. I'm just going to leave it at the bottom. So that's just still at the bottom. Then I'm going to go back to, I've got x to the negative 3, that's being squared. So I'm going to multiply the inner and outer exponents together. and then I have y to the 6. Then here in brackets, both of these terms are raised to the negative 3. So I'm going to take x and raise that to the negative 3, and then y cubed and raise that to the negative 3, so that's y to the negative 9. Okay, so now I'm going to continue in my quest. I'm going to move anything that has a negative exponent to the bottom or to the top to make the exponents positive. So what do we have? Well, on the bottom for the numbers, I have 10 to the 1 times 5, which is just 10 times 5. So that's just 50. Then I'm going to move this x to the negative 6 to the bottom. So it's now x to the positive 6. I'm going to leave y to the positive 6 on the top. And then I'm going to move both of these guys to the top to make their exponents positive. Alright, so what do we got now? We got that 50 on the bottom, which isn't going to change because there's no other numbers, and that's as simple as that number gets. Then I'm going to look at, I have x cubed on top, x to the 6 on the bottom, so that's going to leave me 3 x's on the bottom when I cancel these 3 with 3 of the x's on the bottom. Then I'm going to take these y's, y to the 6 times y to the 9, and I'm going to go ahead and add together the exponents. And that's about as simple as I can make this. Okay, still looking pretty messy, but it's a lot better than it was in the beginning. So I am done. And with that, I'm going to call it a day. So we'll catch you later.